is well needed, well timed, and I'm trying to think of like a third nice thing to say. Well needed?
Well needed, absolutely well needed.
Okay.
A lot of people
Yes.
need it.
Yes. Oh, yeah. When it comes to like past trauma, past pain, and just setting boundaries, it's interesting how many people have lived their lives not knowing what they're suffering from until it just hits them right in the face and they're like, oh my God, where did that come out of?
Exactly. And, that's pretty much what happened to me. It was just one day hit me like a ton of bricks, and, here I am now. But I'm so glad that it did, because I was truly living a personal hell back in the day. But, here I am.
Was it was it like a personal hell when you're going through it, or was it like a personal hell when it's like, oh my God, looking back, did I actually go through that and survive it?
It was a personal hell in the moment going through it. I was suffering from a deep depression, and a lot of anxiety at the time, and I didn't know where all of that was coming from. In fact, I thought it was just my luck of the draw, my DNA, my chemistry. I here I am lucky to have depression, um, and I sought out, you know, medications to help with all of that. And it never worked. None of it ever worked. And I could never figure out why. And we kept trying lots of stuff. And it took a very intuitive doctor that I had never seen before, just one time, to kind of open my eyes to everything and told me that my issues were not chemical, that they were all situational. He had asked a bunch of questions about what was going on, and he said, these drugs are never going to help you because you don't have these chemical problems. What you have is a situational problem. And if you want to get over it, you have to change your circumstances.
So when you realize what you're going through, describe to us what exactly it was
Mhm.
and when the moment in your life you reach the point where you're like, I don't want to go through this anymore.
Yeah, so I was adopted at a very early age. I had my biological mother was neglectful. And so I was removed from her and I was adopted by another family. Um, and is about 5 years old by the time that all kind of finalized. So very early age. I don't remember her much at all. Um, and I grew up with my adopted family, thinking that it's pretty normal. They loved me, they chose me. And that's kind of how they would put it. And my childhood was pretty normal for the most part, but it's when I got into my teenage years, that things started to kind of take a turn for the worse. I started having to work full time at the age of 13, to support my family because I had adults in my life who did not want to go to work. Wasn't that they couldn't, it's just they didn't want to. And so I would go to school full time and I would work 40 hours on top of it. And I did that pretty much until the age of 25. And the whole time I would be super depressed, not understanding what was going on at the time. And my mother urged me to go seek medical help and counseling. And that's when they first started putting me on the antidepressants, around the age of 13, to make me, I don't know, happy with the circumstances that we were living in, I suppose, right? Maybe a pill will make her smile going through the worst of it, right? Um, and so went till about 25 like that. In that time, I had moved in with my adopted brother, who was about 11 years older than me. And he was going to, help me out in his words. And so we got a place together. And shortly after I moved in with him, he quit his job, and there I was supporting him and my mother. And I had a son at the same time. So I'm supporting all three of them on 13.50 an hour as a pharmacy technician, and I'm getting knocks on the door, power turned off, water turned off, car repossessed, and there just wasn't enough resources, and I could not get the people in my life to step up and help. And so we tried so many different medications for the depression, and there was times that my family would talk to my provider at the time and suggest that maybe I had bipolar or I was schizophrenic or all these other mental health issues. And we tried medications for a lot of them, and none of them ever worked. And they always made the situations much worse in my mind. And so the crying and the anxiety attacks were just fueled by the medications that they were putting me on because I didn't have these issues. One day while I was at work, I get a phone call from my brother that they had turned off the lights again. And followed by that, I got a phone call saying that they were going to come repossess my car. And that was the only way I had to get to work. And I ended up having a major panic attack at work. They told me to go ahead and go home, and I went into an urgent care. And that doctor in that urgent care, never seen me before, looked at the slew of medications we had tried in the past and asked me what was going on, and he confirmed everything and told me it's all situational. None of this is ever going to help you. We have to get you off of this. I'm going to talk to your doctor, and you need to make some changes in your life because you've got a lot of people taking advantage of you, and it's not right. And so he says, it's all, the ball is in your court. You're going to have to do something about this. And that was the hardest part for me, was, having to face these people and confront them with what this doctor had just told me all about. And then, try to come up with a plan to fix it somehow. I had no idea, and I was really lost at the time.
That must have been tough for you to go through because I hear a lot of people when they're going through, let's say, a mental fitness check,
Uh-huh.
their concern has always been, I don't want to be medicated. I don't
Hmm.
want to be taking a bunch of pills. I don't want someone to tell me just to keep my chin up and everything will work out.
Yep.
For you, you went through something that maybe is like a nightmare scenario for a lot of people
Hmm.
who are contemplating, do I actually want to put my child up for adoption? Because they can go through what you went through, or you have someone that has went through the system of adoption and they're trying to recover and they don't realize how much it impacts all forms of
Hmm.
relationships,
Absolutely.
right? For you, as you were growing through your teenage years, your early adult years, what kind
Mhm.
of impact do you think that had on your relationships? Maybe romantic, maybe personal, and maybe professional.
A huge impact. And, in my early adult years, my whole attitude was about getting validation from other people in just about any way that I could, really. Um, I did not have any kind of self-love, self-worth. I didn't know what that looked like. And you have these issues of neglect that you have to deal with, as well. You feel like that if you don't perform to the standards of the people that are around you, regardless of how you feel about anything, that you're going to be left alone. And that was, for some reason at the time, really terrifying to me. Now I can say that I'm okay with that. If I have to do it alone, I can, and I will be just fine. But back then, when you're a teenager and you see all of these people in your classes, they have their big families and they have their friend groups, and you just don't have any of that, and you try just about anything to kind of hold on to whatever you have at the time.
Someone once shared with me that she was going through something where she was seeking attention and validation because she was abandoned at a young
Mhm.
age, right? That was her
Yeah.
reality. And she was going through like therapy and she would go to
Mhm.
classes for it. And she was having a real struggle. And because the validation was so strong and it was
Mhm.
like a drug, right? Like it was this euphoria. She's like, oh my God, this is better than I ever felt because she began to substitute it for maybe the healthy
Mhm.
affection and
Yep.
compassion that she wanted. And one thing that she was doing was that she began to become very promiscuous
Mhm.
to the point where after, let's say, a coaching or mentoring session, she would set up dates
Mhm.
or meetups right after it. Like she got that bad
Mhm.
and she didn't realize it until maybe someone pointed out and said, "Hey, what you're going through is pretty destructive. Do you see it the way I see it? In the
Mhm.
beginning, Amy, she was like, oh my God, is that actually what I'm doing? Like it
Yeah.
was like blinders were on. When you were at, let's say, your lowest point or maybe your worst behavior, were there things that you were surprised that you got caught up in doing?
Oh, absolutely. I never saw that I would be into taking any kind of drugs. Alcohol, I went down that road, absolutely for sure. And boyfriend after boyfriend, and sexual encounter after sexual encounter, back then. And I ended up, getting pregnant with my son. He's 22 years old now. But I thank God that I did get pregnant with him because that's what made that downward spiral stop for me. Now I had somebody else that I had to think about and, not just me and numbing, the pain and, thinking that I need to take these drugs or, go out and party in order to have any kind of human connection. And having him actually taught me so much more about human connection than I had ever learned, up to that point. It's very different, but you start to realize with a child that, it's not all about any of that. And it's not about making other people happy or pleased with you, or anything like that.
I look at those situations as like the canon event in your life
Yeah.
where this is where like the fork in the road.
Hmm.
Either you're going to continue on the path that you've always been on, and unfortunately, Amy, some people do,
Yep. Oh, yeah.
or you're going to say that I need to do better, I need to be better, I need to live better because it's not only for myself, it's for my son, it's for my
Hmm.
daughter, or it's for our future. And
Yep.
I've seen so many people change their life around because of those
Hmm.
events. But I wonder now, and I pose this question to you,
Yeah.
do you think if you didn't have your son, do you think that you're still able to make the changes? Or would you have continued living the life that you were living before he was born?
I think I would have continued on with what I was doing until something dramatic had happened. I needed that wake up call because I was numbing everything. I would get up and go to work, and as soon as I would get off of work, I'd hit the bar and I'd, close the bar down at 3 in the morning and have to be to work at 7 in the morning. And I would do that 6 days a week. One day to sleep it all off, on Sunday, I would sleep all day. And that was my life. And, that's exactly what I was doing. And I absolutely would have continued that until something drastic happened. And so I absolutely believe that, he was, it happened for a reason. And my family at the time did want me to have an abortion. They thought I was too young and they pushed me for that. But I made the decision on my own that it was something that I couldn't do.
Now that you have turned your life around, what boundaries have you set for yourself? And what do you think, what type of boundaries would you like to share with others to help them along the way as well?
Yeah, so now I have, I guess, created my own family now. I don't have any extended family. All that I do have are the friends in my friend groups now, and my husband and my 3 children. And that is all that I need. And if it does not align with that,